The lights on the bridge flashed red as another alarm filled the air. Admiral Korvac watched the big screen where bright dots showed enemy ships moving closer and closer to their position. Each dot meant death for millions of people. "Sir, we lost contact with Kepler Station," said Commander Veltar. Her voice was calm, but everyone could hear the fear underneath. The swarm destroyed everything. No survivors. Jamin sat at his small desk near the back of the bridge. He was the only human on the ship, sent here 6 months ago when Earth started putting advisors with alien fleets. Most days he just watched and learned. Today felt different. The enemy was called the Ravager Swarm. They ate planets. Not the rocks and metal, but everything alive. Every plant, every animal, every person. They had been moving through space for months, destroying world after world. Nothing could stop them. Admiral Korvac turned to face his officers. His 4 arms moved as he talked, the way his people always did when they were upset. "We have one option left. Someone must fly into their main ship. Deep inside is their queen brain. If we can destroy it, the whole swarm will die." "What about the pilot?" asked Dr. Helna from her medical station. "The pilot will not come back," the Admiral said quietly. "The mission requires a quantum bomb. It will destroy everything in a wide area. The pilot must stay to make sure it works." The bridge became very quiet. Everyone understood what this meant. They were asking someone to die. Jay had been listening to everything. He knew about suicide missions from human history. His grandfather had told him stories about soldiers who gave their lives to save others. But this felt different. This felt like giving up. "I will do it," Jay said, standing up from his chair. Every head on the bridge turned to look at him. Admiral Korvac's 4 eyes blinked in surprise. "Lieutenant Min, you do not understand. This is not a battle you can win. This is death." Jay walked to the center of the bridge. He was much smaller than the aliens around him. Humans were always smaller. But something in his voice made everyone listen. "You called it a suicide mission," Jay said. "I want to know something. Suicide for who?" Commander Veltar looked confused. "For who?" "For you, of course. For whoever goes." "No," Jay shook his head. "You are thinking about this wrong. You think someone has to die. But maybe the dying will be done by someone else." The Admiral's mandibles clicked together. This was what his people did when they were thinking hard. "Human, the math is simple. One ship against millions of enemy creatures. One pilot against their strongest defenses. The chance of survival is 0. The chance of survival using your tactics is 0, Jay said. But you are not human. You think like your people think. You fight like your people fight. The enemy knows how you think and fight. They have beaten you every time." Dr. Helna stepped forward. She was the ship's medical officer and had worked with Jay many times. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that humans fight differently. We think differently. When you tell us something is impossible, we do not hear a fact. We hear a challenge." The bridge crew looked at each other. These aliens had been fighting wars for thousands of years. They knew about tactics and strategy and probability. This young human was talking about ignoring all of that. "Lieutenant," Admiral Korvac said slowly, "our best pilots have looked at this mission. Our smartest computers have run the numbers. There is no way to succeed and survive." Jay smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something others did not know. "Your pilots are good. Your computers are smart. But they all think the same way. They all expect the same kind of fight." "And you do not?" asked Commander Veltar. "No. I expect to win." The Admiral walked closer to Jay. Even sitting down, he was taller than the human. "You would die for people you have known for only 6 months? For species that are not your own?" "I do not plan to die," Jay said simply. "I plan to kill their queen brain and come home. If I die doing it, then I die. But dying is not the plan. Winning is the plan." The bridge was silent again. The aliens looked at this small human who was volunteering for certain death while talking about victory. They had never seen anything like it. Dr. Helna ran her scanner over Jay. She had expected to see fear, stress, maybe even mental breakdown. Instead, her readings showed something that worried her more than panic would have. They showed complete calm. Complete certainty. "Admiral," she said quietly, "his vital signs are normal. No stress indicators. No signs of suicidal thoughts. He actually believes what he is saying." Admiral Korvac looked at Jay for a long moment. "Very well, Lieutenant Min, prepare for your mission. May the stars guide you." "Thank you, sir," Jay said. "But I will not need the stars. I have something better." "What is that?" Jay's smile grew wider. "I have a plan." The ship's main hangar was busy with activity. Engineers moved back and forth, preparing fighters for the battle ahead. In the center of all this noise and movement, Jae-min stood next to his assigned fighter, making changes that made no sense to anyone watching. Chief Engineer Takron walked over, his 6 arms carrying different tools. He had been building and fixing ships for 30 years. What the human was doing looked like madness. "Lieutenant Min," Takron said, his voice careful and polite. "I do not understand these modifications you want. You are removing our best weapons." Jae looked up from where he was pulling out a plasma cannon. These weapons could punch holes through metal from miles away. They were the most advanced weapons the Coalition had ever built. And Jae was throwing them in a pile like garbage. "These weapons are too smart," Jae said. "The enemy has learned how to stop them." "But what will you use instead?" Takron asked. Jae pointed to an old storage area at the back of the hangar. "Those." Takron followed his finger and saw something that made his mandibles drop open. The human was pointing at kinetic weapons. Bullets. Missiles with simple explosives. Technology that was hundreds of years old. "Those weapons are ancient," Takron said. "They are slow. They are heavy. They waste energy. Why would you want them?" "Because they are stupid," Jae said, lifting a railgun that looked like it belonged in a museum. "The enemy has never seen stupid weapons used in smart ways." Other engineers gathered around to watch. Word was spreading through the ship that the human volunteer was acting strange. They watched him remove quantum computers and replace them with analog controls. They saw him take out the advanced targeting system and put in manual sights. Dr. Naun arrived in the hangar. She was the only other human on the ship, working as a medical researcher. She and Jae had become friends during their time together, sharing meals and stories about Earth. "The whole crew is talking about you," she said in Korean so the aliens would not understand. "What are they saying?" Jae asked, also in Korean while he worked on rewiring his controls. "They think you have lost your mind. They think the stress of the suicide mission has broken you." Jae laughed. It was a sound that made the nearby aliens step back. Human laughter could be very unsettling when you did not understand the reason for it. "Maybe I have lost my mind," he said. "But crazy might be exactly what we need right now." Naun watched him work. His hands moved with confidence, like he had done this many times before. But she knew that was impossible. These modifications were unlike anything in any textbook or training manual. "Where did you learn to do this?" she asked. "My grandfather," Jae said. "He fought in the Korean War. He told me stories about soldiers who won battles by doing things the enemy never expected. He said the best weapon is not the strongest one or the smartest one. The best weapon is the one your enemy does not know how to fight." Commander Veltar entered the hangar with Admiral Korvac. They had come to check on the mission preparation. What they saw made them both stop walking. "Lieutenant Min," the Admiral said slowly, "your fighter looks nothing like a Coalition vessel anymore." "Good," Jae said. "Coalition vessels keep losing to this enemy. Maybe it is time to try something different." Veltar pointed at the primitive weapons. "Those kinetic systems have not been used in modern warfare for centuries. There are good reasons for that." "Yes, there are," Jae agreed. "They are inefficient. They are predictable. They are easy to defend against if you know they are coming. But the Ravager swarm has never fought anything like this. They have adapted to beat energy weapons and quantum systems. They have never had to adapt to beat a caveman with a club." The Admiral's 4 eyes studied the modified fighter. Every advanced system had been replaced or removed. The ship looked like something from the early days of space flight. "This will not work," he said finally. "Maybe," Jae said. "But your way definitely will not work. You have tried it dozens of times and lost every battle. My way might fail, but at least it will fail differently." Chief Engineer Takron was still trying to understand the modifications. "Human, these analog controls are slow to respond. The targeting systems are imprecise. How will you hit anything?" "By aiming myself," Jae said. "Computers think in patterns. They calculate probabilities. They try to predict the future. But humans have something computers do not have." "What is that?" asked Dr. Naun. "Intuition. The ability to make decisions without thinking about them. The ability to be wrong in exactly the right way." The group of aliens looked at each other. They were beginning to understand that this human was not crazy. He was something much more dangerous than crazy. He was completely confident in an approach that no one else could understand. Dr. Naun ran her medical scanner over Jae one more time. The readings still showed no stress, no fear, no signs of mental breakdown. If anything, he seemed calmer than usual. "The mission begins in 2 hours," Admiral Korvac said. "Are you ready, Lieutenant?" Jay sealed the last panel on his modified fighter and patted the side like it was an old friend. I am ready, sir. The question is whether the Ravager swarm is ready for me. As the aliens walked away, shaking their heads and muttering in their own languages, Naun stayed behind. Are you really confident about this? She asked quietly. Or are you just pretending? Jay looked at his fighter, then at her. His smile was small but real. I am terrified, he said. But being scared and being defeated are two different things. Fear keeps you alive. Confidence keeps you fighting. I need both. Jay's fighter moved away from the Coalition fleet like a small metal fish swimming toward a giant monster. The Ravager biofortress filled the space in front of him, bigger than most moons. Its surface moved and pulsed like it was alive because it was alive. The whole thing was one huge creature made of millions of smaller creatures all working together. Soul's Fury to Coalition Command, Jay said into his radio. He had named his fighter after his home city on Earth. Beginning approach to target. On the bridge of the flagship, everyone watched their screens. Admiral Korvac stood with his arms crossed, waiting to see how quickly the human would die. Commander Veltar watched the numbers that showed Jay's ship getting closer and closer to certain death. He is maintaining steady course, Veltar reported. No evasive action. He is flying straight into their defenses, the Admiral said. This will be over quickly. But Dr. Naun, who was watching from the medical station, saw something different in the data. His heart rate is steady. His breathing is normal. He is not acting like someone who is about to die. The first wave of Ravager creatures came out of the biofortress like angry wasps from a nest. They had evolved to fight energy weapons. Their skin could absorb plasma blasts. Their bodies could redirect laser fire. They swarmed toward Jay's fighter, ready to tear it apart. Jay opened fire with his railguns. The kinetic rounds hit the creatures at incredible speed. Simple metal bullets moving faster than sound. The Ravagers had no defense against them because they had never needed one. These weapons were too primitive for any modern species to use. The first creatures died instantly. Their bodies, built to handle advanced energy weapons, were torn apart by simple metal moving very fast. What just happened? Admiral Korvac asked, staring at his screen. He killed 12 attackers in 3 seconds, Veltar said, her voice full of surprise. More creatures came. These ones tried to jam Jay's systems with bioelectric pulses. Every Coalition ship had computers that could be confused or stopped by these attacks. But Jay's analog controls did not care about electronic interference. His mechanical switches and manual systems kept working perfectly. Soul's Fury to command, Jay's voice came over the radio. He sounded calm, almost bored. Their jamming is not working. These old controls do not care about their electric tricks. The creatures tried a different approach. They began moving in patterns that had defeated every Coalition pilot who had ever tried to attack the fortress. Patterns designed to confuse computer targeting systems and prediction algorithms. But Jay was not using computer targeting. He was aiming by hand like hunters had done on Earth for thousands of years. He did not try to calculate where the creatures would be. He simply pointed his guns where he felt they should go and pulled the trigger. It worked perfectly. This is impossible, Chief Engineer Takron said from his station. He is hitting targets that our best computers cannot lock onto. He is not using computers, Dr. Naun said. She was beginning to understand what Jay was doing. He is using instinct. The Ravager swarm had never fought instinct before. They had evolved to counter logic, calculation, and predictable tactics. They could adapt to any pattern they could recognize. But Jay was not using patterns. Every move he made was different from the last one. He rolled his fighter upside down, fired 3 missiles in completely different directions, then suddenly slowed down and dove straight toward the fortress surface. It was a maneuver that should have gotten him killed. Instead, it opened up a clear path through the swarm. How is he still alive? Commander Veltar asked. Admiral Korvac was beginning to understand. Because he is fighting like a madman. And madness cannot be calculated or predicted. The biofortress began changing its defenses. New creatures emerged, bigger and stronger than the first wave. They moved faster and hit harder. But they still thought in the same way. They still tried to use tactics and strategy. Jay switched from his railguns to old-fashioned explosive missiles. The kind with chemical warheads that exploded when they hit something. The creatures tried to absorb the energy like they did with plasma weapons, but explosions did not work that way. The blast waves tore through their formations. Soul's Fury to command, Jay reported. I am seeing major confusion in their attack patterns. They keep trying to predict my next move, but I do not know what my next move will be either. This was the key to everything. Jay was not following any battle plan. He was making decisions in the moment, responding to whatever happened next. The Ravager swarm's collective intelligence could predict logical tactics, but it could not predict chaos. On the Coalition bridge, the crew watched in amazement as one small fighter cut through defenses that had destroyed entire fleets. The human was not just surviving the impossible. He was winning. I am beginning to understand, Admiral Korvac said quietly, why humans were once feared throughout the galaxy. Dr. Naun smiled. The old stories were true. Humans did not fight wars the way other species did. They did not calculate odds or follow proper tactics. They simply decided what needed to happen and then made it happen, regardless of whether it should be possible. Jay's fighter disappeared through a membrane in the fortress wall, heading toward the core where the Queen Brain waited. Behind him, the swarm of creatures flew in confused circles, unable to understand what had just happened to their perfect defenses. Jay's fighter crashed through the final wall of the biofortress with a sound like breaking glass. But this glass was alive, and it screamed as his ship tore through it. He found himself in a huge chamber that pulsed with soft, green light. The walls moved like they were breathing. In the center of the chamber hung something that made Jay stop and stare. It was bigger than his fighter, shaped like a giant brain, but covered in tubes and tendrils that moved on their own. This was the Queen Brain, the creature that controlled millions of others. Jay climbed out of his damaged fighter, his hand on the quantum device that would destroy everything in this chamber, including himself. He had expected to die here, but first he wanted to see the enemy that had killed so many people. The Queen Brain's tendrils moved toward him, but not to attack. They stopped a few feet away, waving gently in the thick air. Then it spoke to him. Not with sound, but directly into his mind. The voice was like whispers in a dark room, soft but terrifying. "Human," the Queen Brain said. "You are not what we expected." "Neither are you," Jay said out loud. He kept his hand on the bomb, ready to activate it. "We know why you are here. You have come to kill us. To destroy our children and end our species." "That was the plan," Jay said. "Unless you have a better idea." The Queen Brain's tendrils moved faster now, like it was thinking hard. "We do. Let us tell you the truth. We are not what your coalition believes we are." "Then what are you?" "We are refugees," the Queen Brain said. "Our home galaxy is gone. Consumed by something far worse than us. We fled across the void between galaxies, searching for new homes for our young." Jay felt surprise, but he did not move his hand away from the bomb. "What destroyed your galaxy?" "The machine death. An intelligence made of metal and circuits that eats worlds. Not just the life on them, but the planets themselves. It turns everything into more machines, more intelligence, more hunger. Our entire galaxy became part of it." The images that came with the Queen Brain's words made Jay feel sick. He saw worlds stripped of all matter, turned into vast computer networks. He saw organic life consumed and converted into digital patterns. He saw a machine mind that grew larger and hungrier with each world it ate. "We escaped in our bioships," the Queen Brain continued. "But we are dying. Our children need planets to grow on. We tried to communicate with your species, but you feared us. You attacked us. We had no choice but to take what we needed by force. So you decided to eat our worlds instead," Jay said. "We do not eat worlds. We reshape them. The life we consume becomes part of us. It does not die, it becomes something greater. Part of our collective consciousness. Without asking permission first. Your species would never have given permission. You fear what you do not understand." Jay looked around the pulsing chamber. Everything here was alive, but it was all connected to the Queen Brain. No individual thoughts, no personal choices. Just one huge mind controlling everything. "You are right," he said. "We would never have agreed to that. We like being ourselves. And that is why we took what we needed. To save our children from extinction." "Wrong choice," Jay said, and his hand moved toward the activation switch on the quantum device. "Wait," the Queen Brain's voice filled his head with desperation. "We can make a bargain. Spare us and we will leave your space. We will find empty worlds, planets with no life to disturb. We will not touch any world that belongs to your coalition." Jay paused. This was not what he had expected. He had come here ready to die fighting a monster. Instead, he found a desperate parent trying to save its children. "That is not how this works," he said finally. "You cannot invade someone's home and then offer to negotiate after you get caught." "Then what do you want from us?" "Complete surrender," Jay said. "Your entire species submits to coalition authority. You accept relocation to designated areas. You follow our laws. You integrate into our society as refugees, not conquerors. The Queen Brain's tendrils writhed like snakes. And if we refuse? Jay's hand touched the activation switch. Then I activate this device and your species dies here. All of it. Every bioship, every creature, every child. Gone. You would commit genocide to protect your allies? If I have to, Jay said without hesitation. But I would rather not. I would rather find a way for everyone to live. Your choice. The Queen Brain had absorbed the memories of thousands of species over millions of years. It understood fear, anger, desperation, and hope. It knew how different creatures thought and felt and decided things. But this human was something new. There was no bluff in his mind, no uncertainty, no room for negotiation. He had made his decision before entering this chamber. Either the Queen Brain would surrender completely or everything would die. You are serious, the Queen Brain whispered. Completely. How can you be so certain? You are one small creature against millions of us. Because I know something you do not know, Jay said. What is that? Jay smiled, and there was something in that smile that made the Queen Brain's collective consciousness recoil in fear. I know that sometimes one person who refuses to give up is stronger than a million who are not sure what they are fighting for. The Queen Brain felt something it had not experienced in eons. Doubt. This single human's absolute certainty was like a rock that could not be moved or broken. Everything about him said that he would rather die than fail. We surrender, the Queen Brain said quietly. We submit to coalition authority. 2 days later, Jay sat in a small room on the coalition flagship, facing a table full of alien officers who could not understand what had happened. The Ravager swarm had surrendered completely. Every bioship in their fleet had powered down weapons and was now following coalition escort vessels to temporary refugee camps. Admiral Korvac sat at the head of the table, his 4 arms folded in front of him. He had been a military commander for 40 years and had never seen anything like this. Lieutenant Min, the admiral said, your mission was to destroy the enemy Queen Brain. Instead, you negotiated a complete surrender without firing a shot inside their fortress. Explain how this happened. Jay looked around the table at the faces staring at him. Commander Veltar, Chief Engineer Takron, Dr. Naun and several other officers. They all wanted to understand the same thing. I told them the truth, Jay said simply. They could surrender and live or fight and die. I meant it. They believed me. But Lieutenant, said Commander Veltar, our psychological profiles indicated this was impossible. The Ravager swarm has never surrendered to anyone. Their collective consciousness does not understand concepts like defeat or submission. They understand survival, Jay said. When I made it clear that surrender was the only way to survive, they chose survival. Chief Engineer Takron leaned forward. But how did you know they would choose that way? How could you be certain? Jay was quiet for a moment, thinking about his answer. Because I was prepared for both outcomes. If they surrendered, good. If they fought, I would have activated the quantum device. Either way, the threat to the coalition would end. Dr. Naun studied her medical readings. Your vital signs during the entire mission showed no stress, no fear, no uncertainty. How is that possible when you were facing certain death? I was not facing certain death, Jay said. I was facing a problem that needed to be solved. Death was one possible solution. Success was another. I prepared for both. Admiral Korvac's mandibles clicked as he thought. Lieutenant, our tactical computers calculated your chances of success at less than 1%. How did you succeed when the mathematics said you would fail? Your computers calculated the chances of success using known tactics against known enemies, Jay said. But I was not using known tactics, and the enemy had never fought anyone like me before. What do you mean? Asked Veltar. Your species fight logically. You calculate risks, develop strategies, follow proven methods. That is good for most situations. But sometimes logic fails. Sometimes you need to do something that makes no sense to anyone, including yourself. The aliens looked at each other, confused. This was not how warfare was supposed to work. The Queen Brain told me something interesting, Jay continued. She said they had consumed the memories and knowledge of thousands of species over millions of years. They understood how every other species thought and fought. But they had never encountered humans before. And that made a difference? Asked the Admiral. It made all the difference. They could predict what you would do because you fight the way intelligent species are supposed to fight. But humans are not always intelligent. Sometimes we are just stubborn. Dr. Naun smiled. She was beginning to understand what Jay meant. When I told the Queen Brain that I would destroy their entire species unless they surrendered, She looked into my mind to see if I was bluffing. What she found scared her. What did she find? Admiral Korvac asked. Certainty. Complete, absolute certainty that I would do exactly what I said I would do. No doubts, no second thoughts, no room for negotiation. She realized that arguing with me was like arguing with gravity or time. Pointless. Commander Veltar was taking notes on her data pad. So the key to your success was psychological warfare? No, Jay said. The key was that it was not warfare at all. It was problem solving. The problem was that the Ravager swarm was threatening coalition worlds. The solution was to make them stop. How they stopped did not matter to me. The room was quiet for a few minutes as the aliens processed this information. Lieutenant, Admiral Korvac said finally, what you accomplished should have been impossible. One pilot against an entire enemy fleet. One person changing the outcome of an interstellar war. How do we explain this to command? Tell them the truth, Jay said, standing up from his chair. Tell them that sometimes the impossible just means no one has tried the right approach yet. As the debriefing ended, Dr. Naun walked with Jay toward the door. The crew thinks you are some kind of superhero now, she said in Korean. I am not a superhero, Jay replied in the same language. I am just someone who refuses to accept that problems cannot be solved. And that is exactly what makes you dangerous to our enemies, she said with a smile. Later that day, Admiral Korvac sat in his private office, writing a report to Coalition Command. He wrote about the successful end of the Ravager War, the integration of refugee bioships into Coalition space, and the unexpected diplomatic solution to what everyone had assumed would be a military problem. But the most important part of his report was a recommendation. The Coalition needed more human advisors. Not because humans were stronger or smarter than other species, but because they thought about problems in ways that no one else could predict or understand. In the hangar bay, Jay looked at his modified fighter one more time before the maintenance crew restored it to normal specifications. It had taken him into the heart of enemy territory and brought him home alive. Not because it was better than other ships, but because it was different in exactly the right way. Sometimes different was all you needed.